Our main focus on the channel is to review the macro cycle of the financial landscape. However, today let's dive into cryptocurrencies, which are potentially leading the charge out of this correction that we've seen over the last couple of days. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It's your home of macro cycle analysis with me, Jason Piscino. We cover Bitcoin, cryptos, the stock markets, and of course, the real estate cycle. But today, the big one is on altcoins as, of course, well, we've seen the market correct and some altcoins are leading the charge out of this low. Some are not going to make it, and hopefully the majority of us are not holding the altcoins that aren't going to make it. So in this video, we'll look at how to find those altcoins that have a better chance of making it in the final leg of the cryptocurrency bull market. Guys, we have a sale today on TIA Premium. If you're not subscribed to the free report, please do so. Link in the top of the video description. That's it, name, email, and you'll be notified today when that sale is live for TIA Premium. All right, let's start it out with the macro landscape here, looking at the stock markets. As yesterday was a holiday in the US, so pretty simple. The data and the analysis hasn't changed since yesterday. Now, although the cycle is still up, the macro cycle is still up, and I'm still expecting more upside for the stock markets, for real estate, Bitcoin, and cryptos, these final years, as the winner's curse, tend to be quite volatile. So we can expect significant swings as we get towards the peak. At least that's what's happened in the past. And when we get to those volatile endings of the cycle, that's typically what happens. We see them in Bitcoin and crypto because the emotions get wild. The emotions are really up there because everyone's making money and they're all scared to lose the money, but then they all want to keep making the money. And so we're starting to see a few of those signals come through for the NASDAQ. And I'm going to go through this in a future video very, very soon. I don't want to make this video too long, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click that link up here for subscribe, and I'll go through this data in a future video. But for now, let's carry on with Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, some of these altcoins which are leading the charge out of those last couple of days where we saw the some of those significant fear points for altcoins come into effect. So Google Trends, I love to look at Bitcoin and crypto search terms. This still well and truly down compared to where it was in March and again in April and May. So to me, this is still all part of a wind-up period, a consolidation for Bitcoin and cryptos before we go on to some sort of final leg into a top. Now that could be 12 months away, 18 months away. We'll wait and see. But for now, the main thing that I'm following is, of course, that period underneath the old all-time high of being roughly 4 to 6 months, which takes us out to around July and September, between July and September. So this is Q3 2024. I think we'll start to see a little more action there. So that's in terms of what I'm seeing for the Google Trends at the moment. It still looks like it's similar to what happened in 2020. Had a couple of good times. You can see there those couple of points here, and then basically the sentiment dies off. People aren't interested anymore. They're not searching Bitcoin. They're not searching what's happening for Bitcoin, buy, sell, all that sort of stuff. And essentially it just leads to this period that the market just needs to consolidate. And I think that's what's happening at the moment. Now, fear and greed index, I'm hesitant to show this one again because I think this should be a lot lower than where it is. It says 60. At least it came down from where it was, and we're seeing that drop off. That's essentially what I had anticipated, just some of that greed coming out of the market. The coin market cap fear and greed does a little better job here of showing where the sentiment might be sitting, somewhere around neutral. But of course, you can break this down into other altcoins, Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, etc. Obviously, Bitcoin's not an altcoin. Doesn't matter. The point is that it's going to show up differently on different altcoins. So for Bitcoin, which I think this is the crypto fear and greed index is probably more heavily weighted on, well, Bitcoin really hasn't broken down. So I guess that's why this reading is still higher. But if you layer in more altcoins, well then, yeah, you're probably going to read somewhere more around neutral or potentially even fearful, depending on which altcoins you're holding. Now, we've got Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and a few others to get through. I want to make mention to the macro cycle here, just an update for the Elliott wave count. Some like it, some don't. And I would say that most don't like Elliott wave because it is quite subjective And the majority of people, at least that I've seen, try to use this, and professionals online who attempt to use it typically don't use it very well. They don't abide by the rules that are set for Elliott wave. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased here, but I'm pretty harsh on my brother, Michael Pizzino. He would attest to that. And his analysis is the best that I have seen. It's better than the people who wrote the book for the Elliott wave course, and I've still seen their work come up. Precher, and he's wrong all the time using the Elliott wave. I don't understand how you could write a book on Elliott wave and then still get it wrong, but I'll leave that for another day. And so I'm using Michael's analysis here when it comes to the Elliott wave cycle, and we can all have a go at him if this is wrong, but I think it's been pretty damn good. He's been posting this since early 2023, looking at wave 1, wave 2, and then followed up before this move happened with wave 3. And so he's suggesting here that we're somewhere in wave 4 or potentially at the start of wave 5. We don't have a breakout yet. You need to get a breakout of the top of wave 3 in order to confirm this particular low point here. So at the moment, we're either in wave 4 or maybe it's completed and we're starting wave 5. So we'll know that over the next couple of months based on what I think is happening with the time frame underneath the old all-time high for BTC. So for Bitcoin, down 11% over the last 11, 12 days, something like that. And essentially, it's all been pretty well within a trading range now for about 100 days. We've got the top there at the 14th. Today's date's the 20th. And looking at 120 days is our 4 months. So we're at 98 days now within this trading range between 74 and 56. But more closely, probably around $60,000 to $71,000. That's on the daily. Not much has changed over the last couple of days, but I do want to update the macro here looking at the weekly chart. Now, a couple of price levels I'm watching are the tops here, roughly 71 to 72,000. Closes above there would be ideal for Bitcoin. And if we take a look at the weekly closes themselves, there's only one here that closed at 71, and the rest, well, almost, the rest of these closes are somewhere around 69.5. And you can see here that was 69.3. You've got this week, a couple of weeks ago, was at 69.6. And so more closes on the weekly chart above 70 could be an early indication that we're starting to see some strength come back into the market and time for a breakout above 74. So I'm going to be on the lookout for more weekly closes, or if we get to that point, we get some weekly closes above these previous tops here being around $70,000. That to me would signal that Bitcoin is getting ready to break above 74,000. If in fact it doesn't happen in that same week. So at the moment, it's still sitting pretty comfortably at around $65,000. The line here at 67 would be an earlier signal, but again, it's still within a trading range of the weekly chart here. So I'm still looking at the shorter term stuff there, roughly around 67, as I said, around 70 and then 72 to the downside. Now to the downside. So that's the upside look. To the downside, we've got this range here. So you can see this. That one there is looking at this entire range from the top to the bottom, projected from the current top. Either of these points is essentially the same, 63,300. So that's a 50% move to the downside of this range here. It's almost hit that now. You've got a 64,000 low, and this price is 63.3. So really just looking to the downside, if there are any further scares, any more fear brought into Bitcoin and cryptos, I'm still seeing this as a pretty safe correction, anywhere down to roughly around 60K for the short term. And then for the longer term, a test of 56 isn't the worst thing in the world. A test of 54 would be an equal correction to this here, which lines up with an Elliott wave count where you're looking at the A, B, C, and these could be the same. So you could have them balanced. That would just be a literal balanced correction if this remains the high. It would definitely scare the absolute living shit out of the market if it was to fall that far. And again, I'm not suggesting that it has to. I'm suggesting that if it did happen, or I'm saying if it did happen, it's still not the end of the world. It's still not going to break the bull market. It's essentially longer consolidation. So to that low, 23%. We've had a 23% correction so far, and to the 100%, well, to the 100% move of this particular range, that would take it down to 26% correction from the top. So it's still all a balanced market. I'm basically just lining up any sort of probabilities to the downside, and should I see them, I still think it's a great opportunity to enter. Now, if it did get under those 60K levels, and more importantly, somewhere around that mid 50s, that would be somewhere that I would think is a pretty decent re-entry opportunity for BTC for the rest of the bull market, if in fact Bitcoin does go higher. But because you could get in at those levels, not saying that it gets there, but if it did happen, well, you could keep your stops relatively close back at this area, because at least in my analysis, a breakdown of this zone, you can see back at the ETF, that would signal that, well, that was the top, game over, and you've got to take a loss on your position, but it's a much smaller loss than what happened to many people buying up this high and then riding it down this far. You can see very clearly on the chart that that is a smaller loss than that particular point there. And that's all part of trading. So that's it for BTC, looking at where it currently sits. For now, everything's fine, but preparation to the downside, preparation to the upside is always key. We've got the timing aspect here, looking forward to Q3. Now let's have a look at some altcoins, and starting with the total cryptocurrency market cap. The last couple of days, we have seen some signs of hallmarks of a significant low or close to one. Now, we've talked about significant lows and close to significant lows in the past, especially around June 2022. Surprise, surprise, 2 years later, almost to the day, we've got another time where the volatility increased, the fear increased. It came in very close to another seasonal date, which is again seasonal date. We're around the solstice, and a timing aspect here of almost dead on 2 years anniversary of that last collapse. And this collapse here in May and June of 22 was between a DeFi collapse, Lunar collapse was May, and then you had the DeFi collapse into June, and that's where you had all the other companies like BlockFi and the rest of those guys that basically were all belly up. They're all investing in the same thing or putting their money in the same place, and they all basically collapsed at that point. So you had a very significant low come in that period. Yes, the market went lower when FTX collapsed, but you could still say that that was a very, very significant low, and buying at that point has been a pretty good entry opportunity. You just had to have a shit ton of patience to get through that consolidating period there before the breakout. So that's why I'm looking at here is some hallmarks of a significant low. We're still in a stealth zone. Now, I've talked about the average true range of the bars, and we're on a weekly here, but if I go back down to a daily, you can see it's still sort of trending back down. And this is across the board, across many different altcoins, Bitcoin, and on the total cryptocurrency market cap. Of course, the bars have gotten a little bigger to the downside, which has held this steady at roughly 30 billion. So it's the bars themselves. But normally what we've seen is as this drops off, as the average true range drops off, it's typically a stealth period in the market of consolidation. And in a bull market, which is what I think we're currently in, then that typically leads to a breakout to the upside. So there's your stealth period. There's your stealth period lining up there. Another stealth period, you can see that the true range dropped off. Essentially, it's all lining up with everything that we've talked about here. Interest drops off. Fear increases. So this drops the reading down. You get the fear increasing here. And that leads to smaller range bars after you get that initial scare. So you see you got the initial scare here, larger bars, and then people leave the market because they're basically shitting themselves that it's all over. I'll come back in 4 years. So it seems like the same thing is essentially happening again, or very close to that point now. Even if you see another bit of a scare here, we'll watch where those levels come in. For now, the 50% still holding up. Those lows still holding up, slightly higher low here, and everything is looking pretty well on track to eventually grind its way out over the coming months. So, altcoins, ETH, USD, also looking relatively strong. It's above major 50% levels. Again, still sitting above the 50% level of this range. That was where the low came in May, same date as Bitcoin. Put in a top after there was a bit of excitement about the ETH ETF news, and then even recently we've had news about ETH and the SEC dropping their cases or some other news headlines like that, right? And it seems like it's showing through in the price stability at the moment, while the majority of the market had definitely fallen off a cliff. So we all know there's definitely been a fair bit of red across the board over the last several days, and more importantly, the last couple of days, whereas ETH, at least it's been trying to hold ground here, roughly around the same prices as it was on the 11th, so about 9 days ago. So looking pretty okay at this point. A breakdown, 3,400. I'm looking back towards 3,200. Still, that's still an okay space to be in at this time in the market. So if this does start to break down, 32 is still a safe level. A breakdown of the lows here at 28.29, well, that's where I would start to say, I don't know if this ETH ETF news is really as good as it's made out to be. So a breakdown of 28K around the 50% levels, surprise, surprise, a fantastic gain at 50% levels, that would tell us that the market is signaling otherwise and that they're getting ready for more weakness on ETH, or at least not the same sort of advancements to the upside. Like it's not going to do as well as some of the other altcoins. Solana, similar at the moment, sitting above the 50% of the entire bear market range. So there's the top to the low, and that 50% is at 130, call it 138. The 50% to the downside, 109. So there's still space to move to the downside and still hold a bullish structure. Solana, good position to be in at this stage of the cycle, still above those lows. So putting in those high lows, as I talked about now 2 months ago in April, when this low came in, looking for altcoins to hold those lows and at least to hold the 50% and the previous ranges to the upside. So you got a move out of the consolidation and then another consolidation here with those lows in place. So ETH, Solana still putting on higher lows in the bigger picture. The corrections, it's so far done 43% down, and the previous corrections there are 37, 46, 52. So still within range here. And you can see if we were to pull this back down to 50%, 48% would be very similar to this correction back here. And then you have the biggest one there at 52, which would be about $100 Solana. Binance, number 3. Looking at these altcoins. And yes, I've labeled ETH as an altcoin. Anyway, looking at Binance here, it looks like this was at least a premature move to the upside. And if the price breaks down from around $540, well, then I'd probably say that it was a fake out to the upside, and you'll start to see it retest this zone being $420 to about $520. So at the moment, this could be just a premature move, and a breakdown gives you the fake out. So at the moment, it's still relatively okay because it's hit new all-time highs. Ideally, want to hold that up. On to the next altcoins, and these are all in the same sort of basket here in the AI space. We're looking at altcoins that have bounced out of this low more significantly than others, and some that have been more on the strong aspect here. Fetch.ai, which of course is merging with ATHs and Ocean to create the token ASI. So far has put in a reasonable low for this stage. When I say this stage, I mean a lot of coins had dumped and they haven't recovered as much. And I am looking at this against its Bitcoin value. If we check it out against USDT, you got a slightly, I think it's a slightly larger bounce there, low to high, 40% out of that particular low. It hasn't broken down from this zone here. You can see that's where it consolidated before that final pump. And you've still got some space down below for support between about 50 to 80 cents. For now, it's tested this zone at $1.10, and so far it's bounced away with some pretty decent volume compared to what it's done previously over the last 2 months. Ideally for Fetch, you'd want to see it get back above $1.80 relatively soon. That was a previous low there on the 13th of April, and that's your 50%. So by way of association here, ATHs is obviously similar. They're eventually going to be the same token. So, okay, maybe it's not 7 altcoins that I'm showing you, it's really 6, but just to show you the patterns on these. You can see it got back into that zone, so a lot weaker than fetch, but it's now bounced out of that previous accumulation zone and is attempting to get back towards this low here. That was the 13th of April low. Ideally, you want to see it get above 1,000 Satoshis and then above 1,200 Satoshis. Let's have a look at it against its USD value at the moment. It's 63 cents. Well, it's getting very close to that low now. That low is at 63 cents, and the current price is at 63 cents. So that's a good sign if it can hold above that level, that it could consolidate here, and this was all just a bit of a washout before it could attempt the 50% level at about 81 cents. So that's still looking all right. So I'll throw you another line here of Ocean. It's at similar prices. Again, similar sort of chart patterns. 63 cents price to remain above to consolidate and then get towards these two 50% zones. First being 90 cents. All right, on to another type of AI crypto, and this is Render. 50% level straight through the middle here. It's bounced off it a couple of times. That's the April 13th low, and it's still showing relative strength compared to the majority of the market as well. And I'll show you some of these other old altcoins or altcoins that aren't performing as well, so that you can see the difference between something that is potentially going to be stronger in this next leg, should we get this final fifth and massive leg up for the next 12 to 18 months. Like you could see the difference, and you can avoid the junk and get into something that potentially is going to do a little bit better. Render above 50%, good signs. Above that low, good signs. And the corrective moves are similar to what it's done in the past. There's about 53, 54% from the top, and the previous correction here was 57%. So it's still basically on track here. Now, it could go a little lower. I'm watching this space between $3 and $5 with a correction. That would be about 62%. Somewhere down to the lows would be about 75%. So it could go that low, and for my analysis, it would still remain in a bullish structure moving forward into this, what I think is going to be the final leg of the crypto and Bitcoin bull market. So that's Render. Couple more to go through. I hope you're finding a ton of value from it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are, and if you want to learn how to put this into your own trading plans, investment plans for the long term, maybe you're into real estate as well, check out the sale on TIA Premium starting today. Link in the top of the video description, put your name and email address, and you'll also get the free weekly report. All right, on to Pendle. Same deal again, guys. 50% level, this time much higher. So it's holding its ground amidst this fear that's come into the market. It also bounced off 50% level back in May, and again back in May. So that was on the 1st of May as well. So I'm looking at Pendle versus Tether. It's at $5.80. And the last couple of days when the market basically shat itself, it found its way higher and got above $5.70. We got a daily close above it yesterday, and today hopefully we get another one. Otherwise, watch out for any sort of closes back below this level. This could be a fake out. So you always got to be prepared in case, it's going to go lower or going to go higher, because no one knows what happens on the black side. We're just watching the strength and the weakness on the charts as it unfolds daily. For now, this has been performing for the last couple of months better than a lot of other altcoins in the market. Stay tuned, watch the 50%, watch the lows here at about $4.80, and then you've got your final support there. Think of it, you're going to war, and you've got those battle lines getting broken down, or they're progressing forward. That puts you in a stronger position. And that final battle line there is about $3.80 to $4. Good position to be in so far, $5.80. Another one here in finance. We've got Ondo Finance. Again, it has bounced in a time where a lot of others had fallen. Again, above 50%, above previous resistance, potentially becoming support. It's only a few days in, so I'm still a little cautious here. And you can see it's now testing the shorter term 50% at $1.24. So pay very close attention in case this rejects here and starts to find its way back into the previous consolidation zone. That would potentially mean you've got longer time here to consolidate, or it's getting ready for a breakdown. But we're a long way from that. It's just good to be prepared and keep these on the watch list for when that market turns around. Maybe watching the total cryptocurrency market cap, and you start to see more bullish signs here, but if your altcoin is starting to break down while the rest of the market is going up, that could tell you some signs that maybe the altcoin is getting a little bit slower than where it was before. And everything's dynamic. It's always changing. It's why you can't just buy something and go to sleep. Essentially, people try to do that in altcoins, and it's not designed for that. This stuff is always changing. So keep watching your charts and be prepared for either the ups or the downs, and get ready to ride those good moves to the upside should we get them. Now, that's what's looking strong at the moment. This is what a weak chart looks like. You guys know what the first one's going to be. It's XRP. This thing has gone nowhere for a very long time, and I always say it's going nowhere fast. That's the sort of chart you don't want to be in at any time in your investment journey. It's the chart, and it could be in stocks. It could be obviously altcoins. You just don't want to be in a altcoin or any sort of market that goes nowhere over the course of many years, gives you one bit of a burst of energy and then basically dies out. You're losing money holding this thing, even if it keeps steady at 50 cents, because obviously inflation, everyone understands that now. And the majority of other altcoins are well and truly up over the last 12 months, or especially over the last 6 months, whereas this thing has done nothing. So that's a chart you definitely want to stay away from. And if it's too hard to tell, well, then just look at the BTC chart and you can watch how it's gone down for a year now, basically a straight year. Trying to break out again, it's going to give them hope. And unless it gets back above significant levels, well, it's all just another pump and mega dump to the downside. So yeah, and try not to get involved in those sort of charts at this stage of the cycle. And another unfortunate one is, of course, ADA. Now, these might come back in a future cycle towards the end of the peak. Maybe they do get some sort of little bit of a run up, and that excites everyone. You know, the coin goes from 30 cents to 90 cents, and they all say, see, told you so. Told you the thing was going to make money. Meanwhile, Bitcoin's already up 3x. It did 3x from 20 grand. Now it's at 60 grand. Bitcoin's already done that. This thing's has not done it. So yes, they will have a bit of a pump when you see them in this fifth wave, but it depends on how much of a pump you're actually after. Do you want a little tiny pump, or do you want a nice big pump? You're gonna have to make that call yourself. I love a big pump of the like buttons. Dad joke for the day. Subscribe to the channel. That is your 7, maybe 8 different altcoins that we're looking at in terms of strength, and the couple here that look very weak as they continue down, breaking lows. Don't get involved in this sort of stuff. You definitely want to be making better gains from that. All right, I'll see you guys at the next video. I hope you enjoyed that altcoin special. If you want more of that, let me know in the comment section. I'll leave a pinned comment. Do you want to see more altcoins in the future? Let me know. I'll see you at the next one. Till then, take care and peace out.